what you're doing is you're tuning his unconscious part of his brain, his more automatic system. All that stuff where you go into an engage mode, avoid mode, that's not conscious. That's not something you actually think through and say, gee, I want to avoid this guy. I mean, for us, when we start to feel that way, when we have those unconscious sensations, we can turn them into conscious thoughts. But the initial reaction, the real stimulus of this, the real piece that's going on is coming on a non-conscious level, on a very rapid level. That very basic way that you respond, that we call that primary appraisal, that your brain is responding to people, situations, such, is not happening on a conscious level. And by what you're doing, what you noticed was that fast system, that non-conscious system, was so powerful, and because it was so much set up for survival, that it made it very difficult to access his conscious, slower decision making, to build up the part of the brain where you work on neural integration and higher level thinking, because of that. And so what you've done now by decreasing the impact of that fast system, so it's not sending the signals, the fight-flight signals, right? The signals it's sending are not shutting down the slow system now, right? They're not automatically saying, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that," because when you're in a flight-fight mode, your brain sends signals to shut down that slower level decision making, because it's life-threatening. If you think about how it was originally set up, the fast system is there, when the tiger is coming at you, somebody's throwing spears at you, that fight-flight system, it's a very rapid decision-making system. And it can't be, it doesn't want to get into consciousness where you're having to think through, okay, should I go this way, this way, this way, is this a threat, is this not? You have to react rapidly. So by sort of de-emphasizing that, by shutting that off, and you're not shutting it off permanently. You're saying it's not. You're making it non-pervasive. In other words, if he's still in danger, I'm sure he can. He'll react that way. But what you were pointing out was that was happening every time you were engaging. It became pervasive. And now what you're doing is you're desensitizing it. You're saying, no, most of the time, son. And you're not. It's not conscious, but his brain is now reacting to you more pervasively, like a son, or like you would want your son to be, and as you say, like a pal, like somebody who you're welcoming, engaging with, and engaging, which is, I want to engage with you rather than avoid you. So that also is unconscious. Now, again, that doesn't mean there's not a conscious part of it as well. Once we start to engage, then we turn on our consciousness, because when we decide we don't have to avoid or fight or flight. We're able then to access the slow system. That's when the slow system comes into play, when things are not life and death. Okay? So the messages from the fast system are not shutting down the slow processing. So you have access to your son. He has access to his own mind, by the way, which he doesn't have. When you're in a fight-fight mode, you don't have access to your own mind, if you will, because it would be life-threatening. He has access to his mind, and therefore you have access to help his mind as well, to think, to make decisions, to look at things in new ways. So I just want to point out how important that is, what you're doing, and the insight that you have. And, it's so much, I can't think of anything more important than what you're doing right there for him. And, if the more you succeed in that, again, and it has to be balanced. There's always a balance there, making sure that he sees that there are limits. But see, limit setting it's not about not limit setting. You see, because limit setting actually makes you feel safer, right? It's really, as you say, about the sudden engagements and the sudden shifts of attention that don't seem productive. That those rapid intrusions on my mental state. And when I say intrusions, they're not necessarily that you're shaking him or you're hurting him. They're not physical things. But for a child with autism, that's where their experience is. But again, not consciously, but their body experiences it in a much more difficult, a much more painful way, I guess. than other people, and it does sensitize that, it does activate that fight flight system. So exactly what you're doing is exactly what you should be doing, because that will open the door for him to be available for you. And see, what you want to then access once that's available is that slower system, that conscious, more deliberate way of thinking, feeling, of becoming aware of what's around you, that you can only get to if that fast system is not in a fight-flight mode. It's not overwhelming. And that's what you're seeing. So good.